Using criteria, operators, and wildcards. You can limit the results of a query to values that are in a field. This is accomplished by using query criteria. Query criteria are expressions that Access will compare to the values in your query fields to decide whether or not to include the records that contain values. For example, the expression equals Grisham is an expression that would be used to include the field that contains Grisham. If the value for a field was Grisham, then Access would include that in the query results. Criteria can be very simple or complicated. Some criteria that you see is very simple and uses basic operators such as a plus or minus sign. However, others use functions such as datediff or field references like birth date. You'll learn how to write criteria in this lesson. By definition, an operator is a sign or symbol that dictates the type of calculation that is to be performed in an expression. There are 4 types of operators: mathematical, reference, comparison, and logical. The next few slides in this lesson go through some operators. I won't go through them in detail, but you can use them as a reference guide. The mathematical operators contain addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, rounding, modulo division, and raising to a power. Comparison operators include less than and less than or equal to, greater than and greater than or equal to and not equal to. Logical operators are also known as Boolean operators. They return a true, false, or a null result. You can use them to combine values from 2 expressions, such as AND, OR, EQV, NOT, and XOR. Text operators, such as ampersand, combine 2 strings to form 1 string, and the plus, which also propagates null values. Special operators return a true or false result, such as is null or is not null, like, between, and in. In order to add criteria to a query, you must first open the query in Design View. Next, identify the fields that you want to specify the criteria for. If you don't see the field in the grid, you can drag it from the Query Design window to the grid or double-click the field. Once your field is in the grid, you can enter the criteria in the criteria row for the field. Here's the query we're going to use. It's a query on the books table that just shows the title field. You can set it up by following the query wizard as discussed in an earlier lesson. Now let's go to the design view for our query. In the bottom half, you'll see the criteria in the grid. We're going to enter the expression equals a death in Belmont in the criteria field. Make sure you enter the equal sign as well as the double quotes here. If you can't see the end of the words here, you can make the column bigger by clicking and dragging on the edge to make it bigger. Next, we're going to switch back to the datasheet view. You'll see all records showing that contain the data a death in Belmont. In this case, it's just one title. Now, let's say we want to combine criteria. Whenever you combine criteria, Access adds the AND operator. We're going to show you how using a query that shows the author, title, and price of the book. So first, let's create that query. It'll just be a simple query. Change the drop-down to the table of books. Add author, title, and price. Click Next. If the detail or summary option comes up, leave it on detail and click Next. Name your query if you like and click on Finish. Now we can switch to the design view and enter our criteria. Now we want to enter the criteria equals John Grisham. And in the price column, we want to enter less than 8. Note that John Grisham is under the author column, and the less than 8 is under the price column. This query will return all titles where John Grisham is the author and the price is less than 8. Switch back to the datasheet view to see your query. When you combine criteria, Access uses the AND operator. When you use alternate criteria, Access uses the OR operator. We'll go back to Design View and enter the criteria. Let's remove the price criteria. Now in the title column, we're going to put in different criteria, but this time we're going to put it into the OR row. And for the criteria, we're going to type in equals a death in Belmont. This is how you alternate criteria or add the OR operator. This query will return all titles where the author is John Grisham or the title is Death in Belmont. Click on the datasheet view to view the results. Access did just as we asked and showed records for John Grisham and a death in Belmont. The criteria that we've entered have all been simple expressions. Writing the expressions for your criteria can be tricky if you're new to Access. For that reason, we've included some tables to help you get started. This table here can be used as a reference to help you with writing your own criteria. You can see in the first column is the criteria description, so for example, exactly match a value such as Grisham. The second column is the actual criteria, which is what you'd put in the criteria field, such as Grisham. The result will show you what that criteria does. For example, return all values in a field that is set to Grisham. In this table, there are some further criteria. Some more criteria here that you can use for numbers, auto numbers, and currency. This list of criteria you can use for date or time fields, because there are some specific criteria you can use for these data types. And here are some more criteria that you can use for date and time fields. There are quite a lot of criteria that you can use for date and time fields, with some more examples shown here. A null or a blank value is an unknown or missing value from a field. However, a null is not a zero. It's a value that's missing. Most of the time, a null is blamed on human error. Someone just forgot to fill in a field. A value can also be missing because there's not any data to enter into it. For example, if you have a field for customers' middle initials, you may not have a middle initial to enter it for everyone, so you'd leave the record blank. A wildcard isn't the joker in a deck of cards when it comes to Access 2013, but it works in much the same way. In Access 2013, a wildcard is a special character that represents character or characters in a text value. You would use wildcards to find records with similar, but not the same, information. In addition, they can be used to find a specific record when you can't recall the information that you need to find that record without wildcards. Just be careful when using wildcards. If you type in the wrong character, you end up retrieving the wrong data. If you look at the table earlier for the text criteria expressions, you'll see like *ION. In this example, the asterisk is a wildcard. By adding the asterisk, you're telling Access to find all data that ends with ION. The asterisk replaces the characters that might come before the ION, such as in the word friction. The like word in the expression tells Access that you want to find text strings that are like ION, or contain ION at the end. If you put not like *ION, it would then find all text strings that didn't have the ION in them. You could put the asterisk at the end of the text string as well. You could have like pre* and find all text strings that start with pre. As you can see, it's really not that complicated. Here are some other wildcards. In the expression like J?, the question mark would make it so that Access returns the records that start with J followed by a single character. Or the expression like J# will return all records that begin with J and are followed by a number. Or the expression like J* would return all records that begin with the letter J and include all characters following the letter J. Of course, you can use not like in addition to like, just as we did above.